Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Kushnesh, and this is the Between the Points podcast, where you become a tennis Jedi, mastering strategies and mindset on and off the tennis courts. Today, we're going to have Dr. Ellen Reed here. She is a PhD coach, best-selling author, and a former pro dancer. And we give you one specific tool where you can have confidence and where you can crush it on the court. For you, let me know if there's any questions, and I'll link up with show notes and everything down below. I hope that you enjoy this podcast as much. Welcome here to the Between the Points podcast. We're here with Dr. Ellen Reed, and how you doing?
I'm great. I'm glad we finally were able to do this.
Yeah, thank you again for giving your time. I really appreciate that, and excited to have you here. I guess the first thing would be let's start out like maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your background and what kind of athletes you work with.
Well, so I've been a performance coach for over 15 years now. I have a doctorate in experimental psychology. So really my background in education is in kind of the research side of things. My emphasis was in cognition, so the way our brains work. I work with athletes and I also work with business professionals. I'd say I'm about 50-50 athletes to non-athletes right now at this point in my career. But when I started, I was pretty much solely working with athletes. I was very lucky early on in my career to get connected to my colleague, Dr. Jason Selk, who is a renowned sport and performance psychologist. At the time I met him, he was just about to start as the director of sports psychology for the St. Louis Cardinals. And so his career, like right when I met him, really was taking off, which was awesome for me because I was able to kind of take kind of the overflow from him right when I was like kind of
Right.
in graduate school, finishing up graduate school. And so I've kind of followed along his trajectory. He started with athletes as well, and now he works kind of mostly with business professionals. But I work with everybody from Olympic, professional, elite level athletes to college athletes to high school student athletes, all the way down to the little ones. I work with quite a few little like 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And so, I do think that I'm a little bit unique in that sense, where I will be talking to like an Olympic athlete one minute, and then the next I'm talking to like a little 8-year-old gymnast, and then the next I might be talking to a CEO, and then maybe a stay-at-home mom. And what I've found over the years is that the fundamentals of high performance are very universal. So the things that we're working on with the Olympian and the professional athlete are the same things that we're working on with the 8-year-olds. So I love it. I love working with the elite athletes, and I love working with the little ones. And so that's we follow kind of um, regimen, kind of a series of fundamentals where, the athletes really practice this stuff every day. Like we don't just talk about it and then they go off to just implement it in practices or in tournaments. Like they really practice this stuff and work this stuff out every day. My athletes do something called a mental workout every day, working on the mental strength, the mental game, just as much as they're working on the physical
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that kind of leads us to that leads me to just asking that question. What is the mental workout? What is it that, what are they working on every day?
So the mental workout, what it is it's about a 2 to 3 minute daily mental workout, just what it sounds, that allows you to literally rewire your brain toward these kind of mental toughness fundamentals. So it starts with something called a centering breath, which is designed to help you control that energy level, control that arousal state. And I know that you deal with this a lot with your students and probably in your own practice, that as soon as we get into competition, we start to feel that pressure. And people, understanding how our body works and how our brain works with dealing with that pressure, when we can control the heart rate, we can really control kind of the thoughts that are going on in our mind. Because what happens when we experience pressure? So our heart rate starts to go and our bodies go into that fight or flight state. where, our body kind of senses a threat. And maybe that's a threat of, potential embarrassment, or what if I lose, or what if I fail, right? And so we go back to that, really primitive fight or flight state, where when we're in that state, we lose the ability to execute the fundamentals like we know how. So, step one in this mental workout is to get a hold of your heart rate and to teach your body that you know how to do this. And it's a really simple, I think this is a really simple tool and a good tool to teach on like today, because people can start implementing this right away. And
Yeah.
it's more than just a deep breath. People tried taking deep breaths. And a lot of times I'll ask my athletes who are struggling with kind of performance anxiety, say, well, have you tried taking deep breaths? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, has it helped? And they're like, no, not really. And in fact, a lot of times when you try taking a deep breath and it doesn't calm you down, you get even more nervous. Because you're like, well, I'm trying to take a deep breath and it's not helping. So the reason the centering breath is so specific, and I'll tell you exactly how to do it and what it is in a second, is because we've got to get air into the diaphragm. When we get air into the diaphragm, it has that physiological effect of slowing down our heart rate. And so all you need to remember for the centering breath are the numbers 6, 2, 7. You just breathe in for 6, you hold for 2, you breathe out for 7 seconds. And that's the way that we start and finish every mental workout, so that the athletes and non-athletes get used to understanding that their body can calm itself down with the centering breath. So I'll pause there if you have any kind of questions or comments about that. But that's kind of the bookend, the beginning and the end of the mental workout. And there's a lot of stuff in between.
Right. So you center yourself, you take a deep breath, and now you're doing this. Are you doing this every morning to kind of make it as a repetition, a habit, something you don't have to think about?
Yeah.
So when you're in
Yes.
competition,
Yes.
you're like it's already like instinct. You're like boom. It's like not.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the key. I think that's what has made this stuff so effective and so successful over the years, is that we practice it every single day. Like, we don't just wait until those high pressure moments to start utilizing these fundamentals. Because
Yeah.
if you wait, they're not going to be there for you. This is like your mental workout is like doing your bicep curls every day. You do your bicep curls, so when it comes time to like lift the heavy thing, you're ready for it. And so the ritual, I think that's a great way of saying it. And sometimes athletes will do it in the morning, sometimes they'll do it before bed, sometimes they'll do it, like sitting in the parking lot on the way into practice. But that's getting your brain, getting your body used to knowing what to do in those situations.
Cool. So that's the first part. What comes next?
Yep. So then there's something called a performance statement. So step one, you take your centering breath. Step two, you repeat something called a performance statement. Now, if I teach two tools today, I think it should be the centering breath and the performance statement, because especially for
Awesome.
tennis, I think this is just a game changer. So the performance statement is a form of something called self-talk. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's just the thoughts that we have in our minds, right? Like the things that we say to ourselves. And humans have lots of thoughts all day long, right? And on
Yeah.
average, I think the normal person has like 60,000 thoughts per day. And it's very normal for the majority of those thoughts to be very self-doubting and negative, especially in competitions, or especially when you just hit a bad shot or a bad serve or whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
very normal for our brains to want to go to the problem or the mistake or the potential problem
Yeah.
or
It's
the
great you're
self
covering
doubt.
it because there's actually one of my questions like, what happens when you hit a bad shot?
Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
And the normal thing is that you start really spiraling in your mind,
Yeah.
right? And so that's totally normal. Basically, I love to say this, that what we're teaching people on a daily basis in what we do is how to become abnormal. So all these things that people struggle with, on the court, it's very normal. But, the best of the best are abnormal. They think differently, and anyone can train themselves to do it.
Yes.
So, performance statement. Now, here's the thing that you need to understand about negative self talk and just kind of problem centric thought, is that we know it's not good,
Right.
right? Like, nobody's going to come to me and say, well, no, I have all these bad thoughts, but I really love it. It really helps me, right? We know it's not good. We know we need to get rid of it. But the problem is that we can't just tell ourselves to stop thinking about it. We can't
Mhm.
just tell ourselves not to think about the things that are guaranteed to come into our minds. And, people try it. I've probably said it to somebody. I've probably tried it myself. You probably maybe said it to your students, like, just let it go. Just brush it off. Just blow it off. Just let it go. Right. But
Nope.
when you tell yourself to not think, yeah, when you tell yourself to not think about something, it's really like putting a big highlighter over it and making you think about it even more. I always do this example of like, it's like telling yourself, don't think about a pink elephant. It's just telling yourself, don't think about it, doesn't make you not think about that pink elephant. So there's something in psychology, it's called the theory of dominant thought,
Hmm.
where our brains can really only fully focus on one thing at a time. And just because we put the word don't in front of it doesn't make that thing not the dominant thought. Okay, so now what do we do with it? We can't just tell ourselves not to think about the stuff that's going to come into our mind. So to get rid of it, we have to use something called thought replacement. And again, it's exactly what it sounds like, just replacing that thought with something else. In the pink elephant example, I always just tell people, okay, when that pink elephant comes into your mind, I just want you to knock it out of there by thinking about a blue hot air balloon instead. And that pink elephant's going to come back. That's okay. But I want you to force your thoughts onto that blue hot air balloon. And that pink elephant's going to come back. But you keep forcing your brain, controlling your thoughts onto that blue hot air balloon. And you can do it. You can do it. This is a skill just like anything else. That again, we practice every day in the mental workout. So now back to the performance statement.
Sure.
Your performance statement is that blue hot air balloon. It's
Mm.
the thing that you are going to use to replace all that negative head trash.
Mm.
What you're going to use to replace, I can't believe I just made that shot or missed that shot, or I'm not good enough, or, what if this, what if
Yeah.
that.
So what does that statement consist of? Like, what would we want?
So, okay, so a couple guidelines here. You want to keep it short and sweet, short and concise, because we don't want to overload our brains.
Sure.
But, for a golfer, a golfer would have one for a performance statement for putting, one for chipping, and one for maybe like full swing shots. Okay.
Mm.
And so that a putting performance statement might be see the spot, soft hands, roll it in. See the spot, soft hands, roll it in. And every single time that golfer is standing over the ball about to putt, he's saying to himself, see the spot, soft hands, roll it in. Whether he like needs it in that moment or not, we use the performance statement before every single shot, before every single serve, before every single time the other person is about to serve you the ball. Because
Right.
again, we've got to get used to using this stuff when we don't need it. Otherwise, it's just not going to be there for us when we do need it.
Right.
Now, the key is that, remember, thought replacement. We got to get rid of the negative stuff. We've got to kind of prevent the negative stuff from coming in by putting something else in, right? Now, if we've got to put something else in, let's just go ahead and put the things in that we should be focused on. So for the golfer, it's see the spot, soft hands, roll it in. What are the things that you should be thinking about when you're serving the ball?
Right. Stay loose, reach up, balls in.
Love it. That's perfect. That's perfect. Short, concise. Your brain knows exactly what to do with that. And I would say no more than three. No
Got it.
more than three little phrases. And try to keep it to as few words as possible. And it doesn't have to be three. It could be one thing, two things, three
What
things.
about visualization? Because I'm thinking like, what about like, yes, I can say those things, but could I also see those things?
Yes. Well, you're asking the right question. So we go through, in fact, visualization is the next part of the mental workout. So first
Mhm.
you take your centering breath, then you just say that performance statement in your mind in the mental workout. And we're doing it in the mental workout to just get it in our DNA. Practice it because I want you out there on the court using that performance statement every single time you're serving or returning the serve. And so the next piece of this mental workout is visualization. We walk you through, exactly what to visualize because I think visualization can be kind of intimidating to people.
Yeah.
And understandably, it feels a little, if you're not used to doing it or you've never done it before, I think it can feel a little like mystical, kind of a little bit just kind of like out here. But visualization is a very real has very real effects. It's been researched. The effects of this are really quite astounding. And so, if you're not, let me just say it this way, if you're not visualizing consistently, there's no way you're performing to your potential.
Mm.
And I think that, I think that the sports world is way ahead of everybody else on this. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's rare. I think it is rare for an athlete not to have heard of visualization. Not to say that they're all doing it, they should be, right? But, I think it doesn't occur to people in the business world or outside of the sports world to utilize visualization. But this is one of the most underutilized tools that is such a game changer. And
Yeah.
so, a little bit more about the science of visualization, just to kind of hopefully convince people to start doing it a little bit more. When you visualize yourself doing something for 1 minute, it's as good as you out there physically working on it for 7 minutes.
Right.
So there's a 1 to 7 ratio in terms of impact here. And so in the middle workout, we just walk you through exactly what to visualize. And you spend about, 90 seconds in the middle workout visualizing. We kind of take some things from the past and some things in the future. And then you kind of keep going through it. But
Hmm.
visualization is a really important thing. And yes, you visualize yourself practicing that performance statement. Seeing yourself in your next competition, in your next tournament, getting ready to serve the ball, going through that pre-shot routine, saying that performance statement and executing. And you are literally forming these connections in your brain that then dictate exactly how you're going to perform.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one thing that I really love and I really love sharing with with the students or with tennis players is that well the performance statement I remember that I don't do it as much, but what I do say those things. One thing that's really helpful for me is when I step up onto the service line and I'm ready to serve, if I start to get these like nervous feelings, I'm like, oh no, oh no. What I do is I start to visualize the ball going in,
Yes.
reaching up, balls going in,
Yes.
picking up, and then like seeing the other player like miss the shot, and I get really
Yeah.
it's like just like replacing that thought with something that I really, really, really
Yes.
need and helpful to me, and it just calms me down.
That's really effective. And yeah, you're using visualization in that moment to replace the negative stuff. And again, that's a great thing to put in there.
Hmm.
And, I would encourage you, and this is hard to do. It takes my athletes a bit. Like, I don't expect people to go out there and start being perfect at saying the
Yeah.
performance statement before every shot or every serve, but we work up to that. But
Mm.
the reason that it is important to do it every time is because the times that you're not going to want to do it, if you are inconsistent, are the times that you need to do it.
Right.
Um, Here's a common kind of argument I'll hear from athletes when I'm first kind of teaching in this is they'll say, "Well, when I'm playing at my best, I'm not really thinking about anything. Like, I'm in that kind of flow state and I'm just executing, right?"
Yes.
Now, that's awesome. Like, we love that. However, there is no magic pill that can erase all thoughts from your mind. And so I can also guarantee you that there are going to be times, and probably pretty important times, probably times when the pressure is on, that stuff is going to come into your mind that you don't want to be there. And if
Mm.
you haven't practiced that performance statement when you didn't need it, it's just not going to be there for you. In fact, in that moment, I wouldn't want you to use your performance statement if you hadn't been practicing it in the other moments. It's like you wouldn't want your students to go out there and try a completely new, serve or whatever in a competition if they hadn't been working on it already in practices.
Right.
So we really want to be strategic with keeping our mental state and our focus and our thoughts consistent between practices and competitions.
Right. Consistency. That led me to just one thing, just to maybe commenting about strategies and tools, because tennis is a very obviously the statements before like the serve and before the return, that's a great, right? So what about in that moment when we're getting playing that point, and you mentioned that getting in that flow state, I like, are there anything that a player can do to just get in that flow state?
So I think we want to make our kind of routine as consistent as possible,
Okay.
right? So that it's almost like a script, that like every time I go to serve, this is what I do, right? It's like repetition, right? Like we don't, it's like you get in that flow state when you're driving your car to work because you've done it a million times. Like you don't even have to think about getting from A to B because you know exactly how to do it because you've done it a million times, right? Same thing for kind of getting in that flow state with tennis, right?
Mhm.
You've done it a million times. You bounce the ball a couple times, you say your performance statement, you go. And so, really, making that performance statement part of your routine and really that consistency of that pre shot routine will lend itself to that flow state, and I think it's a little bit of a tough sell for people sometimes in the beginning that no, I
Mhm.
want you to put thoughts in your mind. I want you to put the right thoughts in your mind every single time before you serve. Let's not wait until we're in that high pressure situation to then try to figure out what we should be focused on.
Awesome. Awesome. So preparation, I think that's the key, right? Key to success in any venture, any tennis or uh, uh, yeah, anything that we want to do on the court. Let me see here. I want to keep this to a half hour. So I think really like what we cover, just that
Yeah.
is awesome, and it's just giving the player something to really concise to focus on. And I think that just the mental workout, right? Getting that statement and taking that centering breath. I think really that's going to be impactful. And I'm a believer in less is more. So
Me too. Yeah.
instead of like packing this in with 10, because I got like 10,000 other questions I could
Yeah.
ask, but let's just kind of wrap this up, and then maybe
Yeah.
if there's anything else you want to say that tennis players could do to keep consistent, and then just let us know where we can find you, and
Yeah.
you know um
Well, I would say, and I'm a big fan of the less is more too, because it's simplicity always. We always want to default to simplicity, and even in our book, we said just don't try to do everything. Don't try to do everything you read in this book. Pick one thing to start with. And so I think between the centering breath and the performance statement, you set an alarm in your phone just to go off maybe in the morning or in the evening, just to take a centering breath and say your performance statement to yourself in your mind, that's going to really give you a great head start. It's kind of the beginning of that mental workout, doing the beginning of that mental workout on a consistent basis, on a daily basis, and then start implementing that performance statement in practices and in competitions. Write yourself, write it on your hand, write it on the tape on your racket. Do something to really kind of drive that reminder because you're going to forget. You're going to get out there, hopefully you're listening to this and thinking, oh, that sounds like a great idea. I'll try that, right? Hopefully I've kind of convinced you, but you're going to get out there and practice and in tournaments and you're working on your serve, you're working on this, it's hot, it's whatever. There's a million things vying for your attention. That's all right. Like, you don't have to be perfect at this. Just do yourself a favor by putting some reminders in place. Those really go a long way. And I guess in terms of how to find me, you can just go to drellenreed.com, drellenreed.com. I'm on Instagram, Dr. Ellen Reed, Dr. Ellen Reed. You can sign up for my mailing list on Instagram, and I'd send out every couple of weeks like some helpful kind of strategies and tools and some free content there. So that's a really good thing to do. But yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, and I think that's going to really be helpful to the players at between the points. And I know that it's something that and just the repetition and just getting into
Yes.
that and getting in that'll help us. So thank you so much. I will make sure I link you up to the show notes and everything like that, so
Awesome.
people can easily find you. I know I follow you on Instagram, and I have not signed up for your newsletter, but I will for sure. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Awesome. Well, I'm great. I'm glad that we were finally able to do this.
Yes,
And
thank you.
thank you for the work that you're doing. I know you're making a huge impact on a lot of people.
Appreciate that. All right, have a great day, okay?
All right, Greg, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.